I am Buff. I am the stuff, and the girls can't get enough. But this shout out goes to Jeremy. Brother, August 24th, 2026, you, my friend, are turning 38 years old. Happy birthday, bro. That's huge. Listen to me. You got to do something different this year. You got to shake it up, brother. I'm telling you, from the flavor of your birthday cake to the place you have your birthday, you just got to do something different. If you do something different, you get a different outcome, and it'll shake things up, man. I'm telling you, it really works. I believe every birthday happens to you get in the groove of the same thing. You go to the same house. It's the same people. It's the exact same cake. Switch it up, brother. You got to switch it up and try something different. I'm telling you, you'll have a birthday that you will remember. Brother, I think it's great you have a podcast. If you want to let me on your podcast, I'd love to do it with you if I haven't already done it. But Broken Turnbuckle Podcast has a great name. I love that. And if you want me to be on it, email me. Looking forward to seeing you on September 5th as well, brother. Summit, Mississippi. We're going to have a lot of fun that day. But before then, have a great, different, positive, wonderful, godly birthday. I am Buff, but Jeremy is the stuff. Happy birthday, brother.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the J08, also known as Jimmy J. Guillory. We have Classic Mike and our special guest of the week, Wes Adams. Now, Wes, me and you go way back. Would you mind telling the people or the viewers exactly how far back we go and a little bit of the history between us?
Man, man, at least 30 years, because I remember you coming to our family's Thanksgiving with your Uncle Charles.
Yes.
You know, who was best friends with my dad growing up, and yeah, so it's a long time.
Very long. I mean, so yes, my uncle and your father were very good best friends. You went to school with my brother, I believe, David Harris.
Dave, we didn't go to the same school, but yeah, I knew Davey growing up too. Yeah, he went to Macomb, went to Park Lane. But yeah, Davey's real good guy. I haven't seen him in a lot of years, but hope he's doing well.
He is. He's currently married and has a daughter. So, Lily came down yesterday just to visit mom. So she was very happy and excited to be around here. So that's good. But yeah. So, let's start with you have an announcement that you would like to have.
Yeah, we're bringing some wrestling related productions back to the Pike County area. So Saturday, September the 5th, we're going to be bringing Buff Bagwell to the Rotary Gym in Summit, Mississippi. We're doing a Q&A, meet and greet, autograph signing. This is going to be a benefit for Sleep in Heavenly Peace Pike County, a nonprofit organization that builds beds for needy families all over the nation. Actually, there's different chapters, but we're going to be benefiting the Pike County chapter and have a great night of just relive some good old wrestling times. Get to talk to Buff, hear his testimony and his story. It's a very inspirational story. So everybody that's in attendance will get to hear that live, meet him, get autographs, take pictures, and just have a real good time.
Do you have any idea on how the format of the meet and greet is going to work? So I noticed that there were some questions that you had on the QR code where people can share the QR code and go on there and ask the questions that they want to ask, how is that going to work? Are you or Christian going to ask those questions, or are they just going to be posted up on a projector, or what?
No, I will be hosting the Q&A portion, so it'll kind of be like a live shoot interview, basically, for the
Okay.
first hour. So the way it's going to work is advanced ticket buyers are going to be able to get in at 5 o'clock. We're going to open the doors to the general public at 6. At 6:15, we're going to start something fun and different. So there's something going on during the downtime until the Q&A starts at 7. But Kristen is going to be hosting a trivia show. So those in attendance that sign up, they can come take part in the trivia contest with her and win cash prizes. We'll probably take about 3 to 5 guests, depending on how much time we have. So Kristen will be hosting that part, and then at 7 p.m. we will start the Q&A with Buff, which I'm going to host. We're going to do a rundown of his career, his testimony, just kind of talk a little bit about everything, his background, where he came from, how he got started in WCW, the whole 9 yards. We're going to go from the beginning to where we're at today, and then we're just going to kind of see what kind of time we're playing with, and depending on what kind of crowd we have, the Q&A will probably last at least an hour, maybe a little bit more. But if we have a great turnout, we'll probably cut the Q&A a little bit short, so everybody in attendance has time to meet Buff, get pictures, autographs, and is not waiting around too late.
Definitely. Because me and you both know from experience on how the Rotary Club operates. You've done shows at the Rotary before, and of course they've always welcomed you because you were very close to my uncle. My uncle was big at the Rotary. In fact, my uncle did consider you and Shane a son that he never had. So you can probably attest to that as well, from your experiences with my uncle and things, and how much wrestling meant to him and our families as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about KWO Productions?
All right, so for the last several years, me and Kristen have had our own collectibles company. We sell sports cards, toys, comic books. We travel all over the South, going to these toy shows and to these events. A lesser known fact is that we also, about 3 or 4 months ago, we started a furniture moving company. So we move furniture down here on the coast. We got a couple of guys that work for us, help us out. We mostly do small residential moves from house to house, not really anything across state lines. And then we started with the meet and greet. So the one with Buff is going to be our first. But KWO Productions is kind of a conglomeration of all 3 of our side businesses. So whenever we get to the point where we're going to incorporate it to a LLC, we will have the collectibles business, the furniture business, and the show production all under the same liability umbrella policy. So that's where KWO Productions came into play.
Okay.
Which, of course, KWO stands for Kristen, West, and Oliver.
Okay. So, in case people don't know, Wes is obviously you. Kristen is his wife, Kristen, and Oliver is his son, Ollie, that we share. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about your history with wrestling. Let's start off with tell us a little bit about your gimmick, where you're built from, trained, and all that.
I started watching wrestling when I was about 4 years old. I started super early. It's gonna sound weird for somebody that's from Mississippi, but the very first wrestling that I actually saw was AWA. saw some home videos of the AWA. Some of the first matches I saw featured Rick Martel as the AWA champion. Get Stan Hansen and Jumbo Tsuruta. Yeah. So like the first wrestling I saw was AWA, and immediately got hooked on it, and didn't take long for me to discover WWF. And this was 85, 86. Mid-South was still around. Of course, Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, was still big. So I kind of started watching at the tail end of the territories. So and I just never stopped. I kind of grew up with the business. I saw the cycles, I saw the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And then I started training in Mississippi in the year 2000. I was in my first year at Southern Miss in Hattiesburg. Trained with a local group. Started working some Mississippi independents. Started branching out to Alabama, Florida. Once I had a little experience under my belt, I started making promo pictures, videos. Started mailing them out to promotions all over the country, just trying to get booked wherever I could. And eventually that landed me in NWA Wildside, working for Jerry Lawler in Memphis Wrestling. And then after about 5 years of independence is when I started with with WWE.
Oh, nice. So would you mind telling us on how you managed to get your career as a referee in WWE?
Yeah, so I started working with WWE as a security guard back in 2000. My cousin Jamie Adams was a athletic director up at Southern Miss, and WWE would come do house shows at Green Coliseum once a year. He would bring me in to do security. So I did that for three or 4 years, and kind of got to know some of the people on the staff, referees and security people. Then I started sending in tapes after about 5 years of working independent. Started sending tapes in. Then got the call from Mike Bucci or Supernova. He brought me in for a tryout and a couple of extra spots. Did the match we were talking about earlier with Big Daddy V on Sunday Night Heat. They put me on ECW with Marcus Corvin, the former Monty Brown from TNA. Yep. And then John Laurinaitis just he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, would you be interested in a referee spot? Not anything like we don't want you to wrestle. We need a referee." That's what they needed at the time. They offered me a contract on the spot. And, when they put you on the spot like that, they want to answer quickly. So I wasn't really in a position to say no. So I took it. Went on the road with them for 2 years. Loved it. Then got my release and went back to wrestling.
Okay. So, if you don't mind, let's talk about some highlighted matches that you worked with WWE real quick. There was the Sunday Night Heat with Viscera. Yes. There was an ECW match between you and Marcus Corvin. And then there were some referee matches that you did with SmackDown, along with some pay-per-view matches. I believe you were a referee at WrestleMania 24. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, was that the one between Kane and Chavo, or was that a different match?
I was in the Battle Royal. The tri-branded Battle Royal that Kane won to get the match with Chavo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the researchers really need to correct that one there. And you were also in the Punjabi cage match between Great Khali and Batista.
Yes.
What was that match like?
Man, that match was something else, man. That Punjabi prison, a lot of people don't know, but it was made out of one of the old blue WWF cages.
Wow.
That thing was solid. I mean, that thing was stiff as a brick, dude. It was hard. It was heavy, and it was just it was hard to move around. But it's hard to really have a match in that thing. You really got to be able to tell a good story. The thing that really stood out to me the most about that match was that it really showed off how athletic Batista was. People used to give him grief, like saying he was just a bodybuilder or whatnot, but that dude was athletic. And if you watch that match, I don't know if you remember the spot where he jumped from one cage to the next to climb over the top and beat Khali. I was standing right there for that, and I was like, man, this guy's he's a much better athlete than people ever gave him credit for. So that was really the highlight of the match for me, and plus the payoff too. So
yeah. And wasn't that the very first Punjabi prison match that they had, or was that the second?
I think it's the second one.
that was a set. Yeah, that was a
Yeah, the
set.
first one was Ali and Orton when Khali came back.
Okay.
I remember that match. And then the Khali and Batista came after that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Do you remember anything said backstage as to how that match was supposed to go, or anything like that?
The Punjabi prison match?
Yeah.
No, as far as I remember, that match went off like exactly the way it was supposed to. I don't remember anything negative ever being said about it.
Okay.
I'm sure the dirt sheets didn't praise heap upon it because they weren't so fond of Khali, so I'm sure they weren't nice about it. But as far as like the finish and everything, I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
Okay. Yeah. The reason why I asked is because I'm not very familiar at that time. I don't think I was very familiar with that match because it was just so new. So I wasn't quite sure if they said that there were any kind of new rules to it or anything, or if it was just going to be a regular cage match or something.
Yeah.
So, what other than WWE, what was your favorite promotion that you ever worked with?
Other than WWE, man, I was lucky. I worked for a lot of good promotions. Working for Jerry Lawler and Corey Macklin in Memphis was a highlight for sure, because I got to work with a lot of veterans like Coco Beware, Tracy Smothers, Doug Gilbert, Kamala, Jerry himself, Brian Christopher, just the glut of names that was working in Memphis at the time. Made a lot of good friends that I'm still friends with to this day. My good friend Dustin Starr, who runs Memphis Wrestling today. Me and him were tag team partners. Alan Steele, who was trained by Bill Dundee, another one of my great friends. We were tag partners for a little while. And then Derek King, he was a really good friend of mine. That was really, as far as the independents go, I think that was probably the highlight, because we got to work a lot of house shows, TV matches, specialty events. And there was a couple times where Memphis would have 2 or 3 shows in a day. So we would get to go from TV to an afternoon car lot show to a armory show and wrestle 3 times in a day. And, it's not something that you really do anymore. Nobody does that kind of stuff anymore. So that was a thrill for me, being in my early 20s at the time, and just being on the road learning. That's probably my favorite part of my independent career, I would say.
Do you have anything, Mike, currently?
Yeah. I have one question. I watch wrestling a lot, and I started watching Tortoise back in the late '70s. That's how I got into wrestling. Watching wrestling when cable first came out. We had been seniors organization at the time. And years and years, I'm watching a lot of mirror stuff. Then I got started getting interested in the independents, and now they're saying independents are more popular than mainstream. Do you agree or disagree?
More popular than mainstream?
Yeah, a lot of people are now watching more independent wrestling, like on YouTube or on local stations. They want to watch WWE because WWE's or AEW rehash the same people. What do you think about the independent scene getting a little more popular? Not popular, but a little more popular than they used to be.
I'm definitely happy to see, the independents growing and more eyeballs on the independents and more places for people to work. More popular is kind of hard to say because everybody's got a different metric as to what's most popular, who's drawing the most crowds, who's making the most money, who's getting the loudest crowd pops. There's just a lot of it is so subjective. A lot of people are just gonna just say what they think. You got people that like AEW over WWE. You got people that like WWE over AEW, and then you got people that don't like any of it. They just like independent. So everybody's got different tastes, and that's the good thing about wrestling is there's something out there for everybody nowadays. You've got your WWE, kind of your corporate wrestling. You got AEW, your more technical, hardcore style of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You got your independents. So a little bit of something for everybody is good.
Definitely. What would you say it would be your biggest dream match?
It could be with anybody, living or dead.
For me to watch, or for me to
we'll go with both. We'll go with both because I already know the answer to who you would like to face, because we've already discussed before on who you would like to face in your dream match. But yeah, we'll let you tell them who you would like to face, and then we'll go on with the dream match as to who you'd like to watch.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I don't remember what I said because my answer is going to change depending on the day of the week. There's a lot of people that I would love to have a match with. There's guys that you want to be able to say you worked with, like Hogan or Austin, just because they're some of the greatest of all time, and just to be able to say you worked them. Terry Funk, to say you worked with Terry Funk or Flair or Taker, just to say you worked with those guys. I mean, that's a dream match for anybody. Anybody's ever laced up a pair of boots, they should have aspired to want to wrestle one of those guys. As far as like modern day during my era, I always wanted to see, because I trained with guys like Kofi and Dolph Ziggler and Sheamus and Drew McIntyre and the Harts, T.J. Wilson and Harry Smith down in FCW, and I trained with them a lot, and I could wrestle with them all the time, and to be able to have been able to work with some of them on TV would have been that would have been fun. I really would have loved to wrestle somebody like Kurt Angle or Brock Lesnar or Bryan Danielson. Somebody that will really test you, physically and technically. If you can hang with those guys, take a beat from those guys and put on a good match with those guys, you could pretty much hang with anybody in the world. So I always wanted, I would have liked to be able to test myself. I did get to wrestle a lot of good names, a lot of big names like Jerry the King Lawler, Brian Christopher, all those Memphis guys I wrestled at some point or another. But I would like to have been able to been pushed by somebody like Kurt Angle or Lesnar or Daniel Bryan or somebody like that. I started wrestling way before Ospreay. I think me and Omega started about the same time, but people like that, just to really test yourself and see what you were actually capable of. So somebody like that would have been great to work with.
Yeah.
I got a question. I was talking about this a lot with everybody. Women's wrestling has been coming on Main Street now, but when I was growing up, we're not treated like men were. They're just show-off matches, basically. And then until Globe started coming around, and then the wrestling started getting taken a little seriously, but not that long. And then everyone else started coming out, like Alana Blaze and Ivory. Everybody keeps asking me why Ivory takes Guerreros, but they didn't know that Mondo trained all those women in Globe. So think about her getting the Hall of Fame when she started in the women's organization till now. What do you think about her transition between Glow and WWE later on?
Oh, Ivory?
Ivory and the women global wrestlers, where they're all trained by Mongo. And what do you think about
You
that?
know,
I thought it was good.
I didn't see much of the original Glow, so I can't really.
Okay.
I know what it was, and I know it was more of a comedy style.
Yeah,
From what I've read, yeah. But Ivory, man, she certainly made the transition. She was one of the top women wrestlers they had in the Attitude Era. So, she obviously she went to WWE and went through whatever developmental they wanted her to go to, and she learned. So I mean that speaks just volumes about her. So I didn't really see too much of the original Glow, so I don't know too much about it.
If you want to, on one of the platforms, they have the documentary interviewing all the women from Glow and showing some of the matches, what they look like, what behind the scenes. It's on Tubi, and YouTube has this. Give you a chance to watch it. Watch it. It's very good. I was in it for an interview too, so that's very good to learn more about if you watch the documentary and tell how they got through and stuff like that and how it worked back then for 5 years. Just check it out when you get a chance. It's really good. You get to learn more about it. Anything else, Jeremy? Excuse me.
Oh yeah. So, what championships have you won in your wrestling career?
Just a handful. The NWA Southern Tag Team titles, the NWA Alabama Tag Team titles. A couple of independent belts here and there, but those are really two main ones. I wasn't really too much about chasing belts on the independent level because I'll go work one place once or twice and then move on to the next. I was really more about gaining experience, making some money, and moving on to the next town. It's kind of it's sad. Championships don't mean as much as they used to, just because they get hot shotted and changed all the time. You have to build up a championship to where it means something. If you change the belt every show, it doesn't really mean anything. So that was one thing that it was hard to explain to independent promoters, especially in the South. You don't have to change a belt every show. Look what happened whenever WWE gave Roman Reigns the belt for 3.5 years. Look at how big that was, how big the story was when Cody finally won the belt. How much money did that reign draw? Because every time, once Roman Reigns hit that year or 2 year mark, everybody wanted to see him lose. And then no matter if it was Kevin Owens or if it was Cody or if it was Jey Uso or Sami Zayn, everybody that Roman wrestled, they wanted to see him lose. And they paid their money to see Roman Reigns lose the belt. But he didn't. So that's one thing I feel is lost a lot of times. It's like the prestige of the championships, just because they get changed so often.
What is your biggest finishing move that you do?
I did a version, the kind of like a jumping face buster, similar to Sheldon Benjamin. I don't remember what he called it. He called it pay dirt, or I don't remember what he called it.
Something like that.
But it was kind of
I
like
think it is pay dirt.
It was almost like a reverse diamond cutter, or like you jump and you pull the guy, instead of giving him like a cutter this way, you pull his head this way and face bump. I used that one. I was partial to that one a pretty good bit. That was one. I did use the Faymaster a lot just because I could, back at my peak, I could jump really high. So I would use that. That was my two main ones.
Were there ever any kind of times that you had a disagreement backstage with a promoter, producer, wrestler, or anything like that where they were doing a storyline and you completely want to disagree with it, and when like, this is not that good of an idea, but they would still want to go with it or anything like that?
Yeah, there were times through the years there were finishes I didn't agree with, or promoters wanted me to do something that I wasn't comfortable with. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, you just got to think about what makes sense. I remember when I was working for a promotion in Mississippi, and like right before I went out the curtain, they decided they wanted one of their trainee girls to be my manager so she could come out and dance. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Because I don't need that. You need that for her, not for me. And it was just like a last minute thing. So, there were a lot of times like that. There were times where there were guys that wanted to do moves on me that I just refused to take. Not either safety purposes or just didn't make sense. So I was never afraid to just say, hey, no, I'm not doing that, or hey, let's do something different, or let's change it, because you got to think your safety first. That's the first thing. Now, when you get to WWE, that's a totally different ball of wax. If you're at AEW or WWE or another big company, and you're making serious money, and they tell you to do something and you don't necessarily agree with it, that's when you really gotta question yourself. Say, is it really that bad? Is it really gonna hurt me that much? But on the independents where, you're making a small payoff and there might be 50 people in the crowd, if there's something you're not comfortable with doing, you need to speak up.
Yeah.
But at least offer to find a solution,
So, when you're with WWE, you said that that's a whole different ball game, and of course, during your time, Vince was just with a bunch of yes men saying, "Yeah, you can do that," and I'm pretty sure there were some wrestlers backstage where it's like they heard the pitch of their character and they were like, "We'll do it, but it's not really going to go well with the audience or anything." And of course, watching SmackDown and watching Raw during those times, there were some storylines that did not really go well during that time. I'm trying to think of some storylines that I can recall that were around while you were working there.
Well, I could give you a perfect example,
Okay.
of like you having to make a decision of whether or not you want to keep a job or do you want to the Spirit Squad.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
How if you were 2 years in the business and you're in OVW and then here they come and they pluck out that the Spirit Squad guys, obviously Ziggler, Johnny Jeter, Mike Mondo, Kenny Dykstra, that was four top prospects in OVW. Those guys, the other guy, the tough enough guy, Nick Mitchell, I don't think he got I think he had some injuries that kind of limited what he could do in the ring.
Yeah.
But those other four guys, they were world class athletes. I mean, we all saw what Dolph Ziggler turned into, and we only saw glimpses of what Kenny Dykstra or Johnny Jeter or Mike Mondo could have done. We really didn't get to see what those guys could have been.
Right.
But Elijah Burke, from what I've understood, he rejected the Spirit Squad. They offered him a spot in it, and he said, "No, I don't want to do that." So they went with somebody else, and then they bring these guys up. They give them a big push. They were on TV for a year, working with DX, bodyguards for McMahon at WrestleMania when he wrestled Shawn. They had a good run for a year, but what happened after that? there was no career longevity with that gimmick.
Yeah.
And I think those guys probably knew that going in. So that's something where you have to say, hey, am I going to do it for the paycheck and make the most of it and do the best I can? And those guys, you got to give them credit for it. They did the absolute best they could with it.
Yeah.
For the year run or however long it was that they had. But then where do you go from there? Dolph Ziggler had to reinvent himself. Kenny Dykstra had to reinvent himself.
Yeah.
And then the other two guys just kind of, they didn't have anything for them or didn't even look too hard for them to do anything. So could they have said, no, I don't want to do that because it's going to ruin my career? Or, hey, I'm going to do the best I can with it and then just hope they do something with me after. So those are, that it's a case-by-case basis. You have to decide for yourself, what you're willing to risk.
Okay, I got another group. I want a question of the Nexus. Who do you think was better when Ben News Barrett was head of it or CM Punk?
Barrett. Don't get me wrong, I love CM Punk. He was a great guy. I loved him.
I like Barrett better.
He was great with the Straight Edge Society. And I think looking back, pretty much everybody involved can pretty much tell you that they did the Nexus 30 by having Cena beat them at SummerSlam in 2010.
It was all the first season. That was when NXT first came out, and that was the first season. All came out.
Yeah, they pretty much killed that angle dead. I will go to my grave screaming that had they given Nexus the win and kept moving forward, I could have seen a situation where Wade Barrett won the Royal Rumble the next year, and you could have potentially had a main event of Wade Barrett and John Cena at WrestleMania the following year. That storyline, I'll just tell you how hot that storyline was. At that point, I wasn't really watching too much.
I was watching. I've been hearing about it, but I watched bits pieces myself. So.
Yeah, I wasn't really watching too much at that point, and I was on Monday nights. I was living in Hattiesburg, and on Monday nights I was hosting trivia night at a bar. So I would go to this bar from 7 o'clock to usually 10:30 or 11, and I'm hosting trivia at the bar. So I went a whole almost year without watching Raw. And the night that the Nexus came out and destroyed everybody, my phone started blowing up from people I hadn't heard in months. Like, hey, is this real? What's going on? What's happening? And I was like, you asking the wrong guy. I don't know. I'm not watching. So fortunately, I had DVR'd it, and I went back and watched it. And I was like, oh man, they've got money here. That could have been a huge money drawing angle had they played it out, a little bit better. That's just one thing. You can't. People don't understand when you're booking angles. You got to throw gas on the fire, not water. And that angle was so hot. And if they would have let Nexus have the win, that would have been throwing gas on the fire. Instead, they had them lose, threw water on it, it fizzled out, and look what happened. Half of them got released within a couple years. Poor Wade, Wade, who should have been a top-tier main event talent, kind of washed around the mid-card for a couple of years. It's just a bad booking decision, cost them a lot of money. So, and I don't know who's fully responsible for that, but, it's just, that's just booking. That's booking wrestling, man. You gotta really be careful about what you do, because you're always one bad decision away from killing off a hot angle and making your crowd upset.
Supposedly, John Cena went on to records and he said that he disagreed with when he went backstage that day on SummerSlam and they said that he was going over. He completely disagreed with it. He said that Nexus needs to go over. He went to Vince and said, look, they're hot right now. They need to go over. And they said, well, we've already booked it. They've already agreed to it and everything. There's nothing that we can do to change the finish. We're sorry. And he said, okay, well, I'll do this only on the condition that I will lose for the next 6 SummerSlams in a row to honor them. And that's exactly what he did, if you notice his SummerSlam record. Because for the next 7 years, he went on a SummerSlam losing streak. So he really did keep his word on he was going to lose those next SummerSlam matches.
Mm-hmm. I don't know about that. That's just kind of, I've never heard that one. That's kind of out there. That's a because they don't know what's going on the next 7 SummerSlams at that point.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going on the next 7 Raws at that point. So that's kind of I don't know. I've never heard that one before. But anything can be changed. Like I've been involved in matches where they changed the finish in the middle of the match. They changed the finish of a match between Chavo Guerrero and a developmental talent named Charles the Hammer Evans. He never made it to TV, but he was wrestling a dark match, and in the middle of the match, they changed the finish and told me to tell Chavo to put the kid over. So they changed. They're capable of making changes. So I don't know. I don't know about that one, but anything can be changed. They've changed finishes in gorilla position like 5 minutes before the match starts. So I mean, everything can be changed. But again, that's one of those things where, when I booked wrestling, I'd make a plan and stick to it. You can't second guess yourself, and you can't, you don't want to change things last minute. Unless it's an injury or something catastrophic. Sometimes you do have to change finishes on the fly if somebody gets hurt or something. But to just change it, just to change it at the last minute is just kind of counterproductive to the bottom line. Because it's supposed to be wrestling's supposed to be a hamster wheel. This angle's supposed to lead to the next one. This one's supposed to lead to the next one. But if you stop the wheel and you start going backwards, you can't move forwards. And that's kind of what they did with the Nexus. They made them lose. The hamster wheel stopped, and then within a year, half of them are either released or not doing anything. Which is kind of, really sad because it was they left so much money on the table with that angle.
What is something in wrestling that you would like to change?
Change. Honestly, like nowadays, I don't know. I don't watch it as much. I'm not as up to speed with the current product, and a lot of that has to do with our TV's overtaken by a almost 3-year-old. As we don't get to hardly watch new stuff. Yeah, lots of cartoons.
I'm not bothered, but I raise one of my cousins every time I watch them. Oh, I watch Bugs Bunny. I watch this. My cousins come over and watch cartoons all the time. So I grew up and I watched the cartoons. I'm not married, so I have no kids. Sorry, my cousins.
Really. A lot's changed for the work for wrestling over the years for the good. The guys they're making more money. There's more places to make money. You can make money in WWE. You can make money in AEW, Impact, TNA. Major League Wrestling's coming up.
NWA's got back on TV again.
NWA, Corgan, the NWA can make money there. Japan, Mexico. There's more places than ever to make money. That's good. I think really is just I would just like to see people be safer, with the wrestling, not take so many unnecessary chances and try to protect their bodies because wrestling every night, that's like being in a car crash every night. You gotta slow it down, take your time. Obviously you can't go back to the Mid-South days where you can work a headlock for 15 minutes and you can't do that anymore, but you can still tell a good story if you really try hard.
Okay, I got a question for you. Of all the wrestling you ever watched, What was your favorite match?
My favorite,
What you love to watch?
my favorite match that I have to watch a couple times a year. I have a handful of them, but probably the very top one is from SummerSlam '91 when Bret the Hitman Hart wins the Intercontinental belt from Mr. Perfect.
Yes.
I was a big Hart Foundation fan, loved him as a tag team.
Oh yeah, good from watching Hart Foundation and all that. I was there.
Yeah. Watching Bret start that transition to a single star, that was certainly a great match. The story behind it, how hard Mr. Perfect fought, during the back injury, Bret trying to establish himself as a single, that was the match I think really cemented me as far as, hey, I want to do this one day. I want to try this one day. Because it was one of those types of matches that you could get lost in. There's certain matches. I'll give you another example. It's kind of an underrated match. A lot of people, it was just on such a big card that it's overlooked. But WrestleMania 21, Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, that match could have been a WrestleMania main event any other year. Those two guys, just the wrestling, the storytelling, just the physical, just beating the crap out of each other. Those are the kind of matches that you would show a non-wrestling fan to try to get them into it.
Right.
You're like, oh, hey, you don't necessarily, a lot of people, it's like NASCAR. I'm not a fan of NASCAR,
Right.
but I respect it because a lot of people love NASCAR. It draws a lot of money. People love it. I'm not one of those people, but I'm never going to try to tell somebody, oh, I'm not going to talk somebody out of watching NASCAR. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People love to talk down to wrestling fans and talk them like, why do you watch that stuff? It's so fake. It's so, people love to talk down about wrestling fans. But those are two matches that I would show somebody that's not a wrestling fan, or show them Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 19, or
Oh yeah.
and ask them, say, hey, does this look fake to you? You think you could get in there and hang with that guy? And that's to me, that's the kind of wrestling that always appealed to me, is the wrestling that you got lost in. Sometimes wrestling can be so gimmicky and so many obviously choreographed moves and stuff that the art gets lost. It's like they slip up and they try it again, instead of going on to something else. But just that strong storytelling, something that I miss from the old days of wrestling.
And I got another question. I watch a lot of wrestling all the time. I remember WrestleMania 3, that one match destroyed the main event. That was Macho Man versus Steamboat. That destroyed the main event right there. Have you ever come across as referee that the regular matches before that was better than the main event, or no?
Yeah. That happened several times. The SummerSlam we were just talking about.
Okay.
SummerSlam 91, Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect was like third match on the card.
Yep.
Way better than the main event. Way better. That's happened at WrestleMania. Look, WrestleMania 7. Nobody can say that Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter, was better than Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior career-ending match.
Yes.
That's just part of it. The next year, Bret Hart, Roddy Piper was way better than Hogan and Sid. So yeah, that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon for a mid-card match to be better in your main event.
Yes, was the Hogan was starting to go downhill, started to get ready to leave.
There was also the there was also the Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match, WrestleMania 25. That should have been
25, yes.
Main event.
Apologies to both guys, but that Randy Orton and Triple H main event, that was not. I think they had some things working against them at the time.
Yeah, I kind of.
That was not. They totally got outshone.
Yeah.
But,
That happened a lot of years. A lot of main events didn't go well. And undercards are better than.
Oh yeah, me. That's not uncommon.
Not
It's
just
really,
WWE,
really
everybody
not.
else too. Not just WWE.
Yeah.
All of us just had that.
I know WWE has had some firings and some releases. There was an announcement last night saying that Johnny Gargano is about to leave the WWE. Looking at his current gimmick, honestly wouldn't blame him.
He wants to. He says not going nowhere.
Yeah.
He has to be released.
When you were working with WWE and you saw some releases, how many of them were just due to their talent versus that they just wanted to leave to go somewhere else?
While I was there, it was kind of a mixture. While I was there weren't too many people leaving because they wanted to. Not very many people left like just because they wanted to, because most people, especially in that time, that was when TNA was in a weird period. Ring of Honor guys weren't making full-time money. Japan was kind of iffy. Mexico was kind of iffy. So if you wanted a full-time job and you wanted to pay your bills and support yourself with wrestling, you had to do it at WWE. So there weren't too many people asking for their releases. I know that there were several releases, especially at the developmental level, of talent that they just felt were not going to draw money, or they were not going to grasp the fundamentals of wrestling and be in a position to where they could be called up to the main roster. And then the majority, especially the main roster, and this is the most frustrating. And I'm peeling back the curtain here because I'm probably going to tell you something that a lot of people don't bring up. But a lot of people get released because of the infamous creative has nothing for you. And people get, give the writers flack about that. Oh, well, they're not very creative if they can't come up with a gimmick for somebody. That's where people get things backwards. While I was there, and I'm sure this went on for a long time, the creative team pitched ideas all the time. There was people that would get released. Creative has nothing for you. No, creative may have pitched gimmicks for Kenny Dykstra or Deuce and Domino before they got released, or Cherry or Charlie Haas. Some of these names that got released due to the creative has nothing for you. These creative writers may have been pitching ideas, but one person's turning these ideas down. And at that time, you know who that was.
Exactly.
That was Vince. If Vince didn't want to use you and didn't want to, use those ideas, what can the writers do? And then if a talent's not getting used, that was kind of the go-to line. Creative has nothing for you. Well, and a lot of times these talent were pitching ideas for themselves. They would pitch ideas to the creative would go over it with them. They pitch it to Vince or the agents, and they turn it down. Now, maybe not every time, but a lot of instances. The creative team was, there were several people on the creative team that I talked to a long time that were great wrestling fans, and they knew the business and had great ideas. But you could come up with all the great ideas in the world, but if Vince doesn't want it on TV, it's just not going to happen.
Like, for example, Chad Gable, when I started watching him, he's with a team, they're not using that much. And then I think he's one came with gimmicks to put the mask on just to get farther doing the Lucha Libre stuff. He was interested in doing that. And then they had that match with him removing the mask, and then he's now back doing Chad Gable. What do you think about him doing now since we was by the team? I think he's got a lot better doing the Lucha Libre style stuff.
Oh yeah. He's definitely grown a lot as a performer these last couple of years. I was glad to see him, get his run as Intercontinental Champion. I I still think he should have been the guy to beat Gunther a couple years ago, but again, they're not paying me to make those decisions.
Yeah,
But
it's creative right there. So get Gunther more pop, more bad guy. So that person. That's what we're trying to do to get Gunther in the main events. That's what he's doing. They're doing so. Next one, Jeremy. We got a lot.
Definitely.
You should do.
Let's see. So we've talked about the releases with Crave Has Nothing For You. What about the other releases? Are you comfortable about talking about how you got released from WWE?
oh yeah. And yeah, mine. My release was kind of just a unique situation, man. I was refereeing on SmackDown. They decided before TV to switch me to ECW. They switched me and Scott Armstrong as the doors are opening to this TV taping. They switch it. They switched me to ECW, him to SmackDown. We'd already been assigned our matches for the day, so we had to switch our matches, which caused a lot of chaos. Then I get assigned to the ECW match, The Miz and John Morrison against Matt Hardy, Mark Henry. They were building to Matt versus Mark at SummerSlam that year, which I had been told that day I was going to referee. I'm sure you've seen the match before. There was a bot. John Morrison got knocked out. The Miz forgot to run in and break up the pin. I counted the pin. It looked awkward. I got the heat for it. Vince, from what I was told, made the call to release me. He never talked to me about the decision. I never saw him again after. That was on a Tuesday night. That Friday, I get a phone call from John Laurinaitis. Hey, I'm sorry, we got to let you go. Me and him had a conversation. His words to me was, we probably should have never turned you into a referee. We should have kept you a wrestler. Go get some more experience, and we'll see about bringing you back. So, from that was 2008. From that point on, it seemed like they brought me back as an extra and gave me a little tryout and look like every once a year or so for like the next 3 or 4 years. And the same thing every time, like, hey, you did good. Your promos are great. Your work's great. We'll see about bringing you back. And it just, turned into a hamster wheel until finally I just was like, it's not happening. So, just move on.
Speaking about releases, a lot of wrestlers re-release these days because of pay cuts they're doing WWE. And these guys that want to stay want no pay cut, but the rest want to stay just to take the pay cut because they're struggling right now. What do you think about those people that don't want to wrestle there for the pay cut or going to stay there for the pay cut? So every wrestler got a pay cut.
Well, so here's the thing. If a company comes to you and they offer you a contract, TKO comes to you and they say, hey, we're going to give you $1 million a year for 3 years. Okay. And at the end of that first year, they come back and they say, well, you need to take a 50% pay cut or we're going to fire you. To me, that's not right. Whatever you're doing on your end as a promotion, you shouldn't take it on the talent. If you're not utilizing them to draw you the money that you think they should be drawing, that's on you. That's not on them. I go on record and saying this, like, if that's what happened with like the New Day and Sheamus, they gave them contracts and then didn't want to honor it. That's just bad business to me, because you're talking about world-class talents that you can literally just print money with. We've seen what the New Day is capable of, as heels or baby faces. They could have made you your money back if you would have used them accordingly. Sheamus had a big money drawing angle just ready-made for him. You know, the one belt that he didn't get, the Intercontinental Championship, that storyline would have been a license to print money. But again, you know, that it's TKO. It's a new regime. You know, it's not Vince running anymore. It's a major corporation that answers to stockholders, and they're going to do what they feel is best. And if that's the decision they take, and I wholeheartedly applaud the guys that say, no, I'm not taking a pay cut. And hey, we'll go make money. So we'll go make more money somewhere else. You can bet your bottom dollar, the New Day, Sheamus, they're going to be just fine. You know, once they get on that convention circuit and independent circuit and the Comic-Con circuit, they're going to be fine. They're going to be making tons of money. And I hope they do. I really do. Because those are all good guys and any talent. Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, I applaud anybody that's willing to take the pay cut and say, okay, I'll prove to you. You give me the opportunity, I'm going to make you more money. Mm-hmm. So it just depends. You know, you just have to kind of, you know, believe in yourself. You know, see what you feel you're capable of. You know, New Day knew they're capable of more. Sheamus knows he's capable of more. You know, I'm not really familiar if there's anybody else that's facing that same situation, but you know, only you as a person know whether or not you're capable of more. You know, somebody came to me right now and said, "Hey, we want to sign you, but we want you to be a part-time manager, a referee, or commentator." That's all I'm capable of nowadays. I'd be perfectly fine with that. So I wouldn't expect to be put in a position to where I'd be making a ton of money. So you have to ask yourself, what am I actually capable of? What can I bring to the product? Am I capable of drawing more money? Well, if I am, I don't need to take a pay cut, you know, but I got to be really willing to bet on myself to see if I can do it somewhere else.
Okay, I got another question. Recently, AEW, Tony Khan wants to go in background, but he's been trying to get Shane McMahon to come back from Australia, where he's at, to come run AEW. Rumors have it he might be in the future just as a running organization. No angles on it to stick over Tony Khan for a while. He's kind of burned out, I guess. We tried to move Shane for like last 2-3 years. What do you think about that if Shane does come back and take over the law for AEW on air?
You know, it would definitely send shockwaves in the wrestling industry.
It did when they had the first meeting. They should shockwaves.
Yeah, it sure did. You know, if Shane McMahon walked out on AEW tomorrow and was the on-screen general manager, matchmaker, you know, that would equal ratings. Or even if he brought in, you know, a group of ex-WWE guys like the New Day and Sheamus, and if the rumors are true, Bailey coming in, you know, he bleeds almost like an invasion angle or something. It could be huge, yeah. And I'm always would be happy to see something that gets people talking about wrestling, and that would be something that people would talk about. People that haven't watched wrestling in years. Hey, did you hear Shane McMahon is it this AEW? Oh, what's that? I haven't heard of that. I haven't watched wrestling in 20 years. Oh, it's a new company. And Shane McMahon left WWE to go there. And, you know, if it gets people talking and it makes sense, you know, it'd be great. Now, I you know, booking wrestling is hard. It really is, because you got so many masters to serve. You know, there's so many fans out there, and you've got to keep your advertisers happy. You got to keep your station that your TV shows are on happy. You got to keep the wrestlers happy, the fans happy. Booking wrestling, as Triple H is finding out now, is very difficult. And you kind of, you know, back in the territory days, they used to cycle bookers in and out. You know, somebody would book the territory for 18 months or a year or something like that, and then they would turn it over to somebody else for a year or 18 months. That way, you know, a booker wouldn't get burned out. And I think that could be, you know, a big factor for guys like Triple H and Tony Khan. Is like they're booking so much wrestling so fast. I mean, how many TV shows does AEW have now? 3?
I don't think
was
they had third
3 at one time, and I think they got rid of one of them.
They got the one on the internet. They got rid of one of them.
Yeah.
picture, but they still got the Saturday night one. They still got the regular one for HBO Max. Those were
Right. So you're writing and booking 3 TV shows a week and building up the pay-per-views. You are going to burn out at a certain point, and it's good to groom and train somebody else to be your backup booker or your secondary booker, so you can step back and take a breather and refresh. But also at the same time, I can understand why those guys don't want to do that. Once you get a position of power like that, it is hard. It's hard to give up control. Nobody wants to give up, the book. Jeremy, you've been to, I don't know how many of the independent shows that I promoted over there in Mississippi.
Almost every one.
Almost every one of them. And I never booked full-time wrestling. I would book 1 or 2 shows a month, and that was hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just booking 1 or 2 shows a month. I couldn't imagine booking 3 or 4 a week and staying sharp for the period of time that they do. But also at the same time, you have to be able to listen to your wrestlers and your referees and your creative team, and listen to their pitches and listen to their ideas. That's the only way you can stay sharp. And I used to do that. I would listen to my talent, as far as what they wanted to do in a match. I wasn't, dictator by any means, but there you really have a shelf life as a booker if you're doing it by yourself without a team. So.
Okay, I got another question about MLW. Yearly, they put an event, because they're at the old ECW arena, they put like the original ECW once a year. Bring some of the guys from the original ECW to do matches with some of their guys. Now, what do you think about them keeping that original alive versus WE trying to do it later on? MLW's been doing it for several years now. A lot of people have been coming up there, I've seen.
Yeah, it's good especially for the older wrestlers, to get a little more exposure and payday every once in a while. It's good to see reminders of the past. You don't want to do it at the expense of your current talent, but it's good to have a little reminder every now and then of the past. I used to love it. One of my favorite parts of being on the road with WWE was you just never know who's going to show up, either in a cameo or just visit backstage. And that translates to the screen too. It's always fun to see one of your childhood favorites, show up on TV or in camera, and it also gets people talking. Oh, I heard Greg the Hammer Valentine was on Raw, or whenever they were doing the Legend angle with Heath Slater a couple years ago, and they brought back Vader and Sid, and that gets people.
I watch that once in a while. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Another underrated and underused guy, Heath Slater. Just
Yes. What
capable of so much more. Mm-hmm.
That was crap. I get so many kids. I thought it was bull. One of the ones I think it's bullshit, but he did that. He has so much potential.
So, there's been several times, and I'm pretty sure your phone's blown up on this situation, where referees have been messing up on their counts. Either they're claiming there's a kick out when there's not one, or they count the 3 when they kick out, stuff like that. And Triple H would come through the press conferences, and the person in the press conference would bring that up to him, and he says, well, referee has the final say. How do you feel about what they're saying now about referees with their botch those kind of situations versus the situation that you've had to deal with working with WWE as a referee?
Yeah. How did I get let go for messing up a match on the ECW, which very few people were watching, and then a few years later you got a referee blow the spot in the main event of WrestleMania 35, missing the count on Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. How did he keep his job after that? How did I get fired, and how that guy keep his job? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Now, I don't necessarily think that, they should get fired for it or lose their job over it. But at the same time, and we don't know that, for all we know, he could have gotten fined or gotten cursed out, gotten a talking to. We don't know. But yeah, it just kind of, sometimes it does, bother me that, I got, that was really my first major mess up, and I got let go for it. And then you've got other people who've messed up multiple times on live TV and pay-per-view and are still there and get chance after chance after chance. It's just, it's just one of those things, I don't.
Yeah. You won't believe how many times that I've actually gone onto YouTube, and some of the videos that I've actually shared to you, where they actually talked about you yourself there, they would always defend you on that, if you've noticed. I'm not sure if you watch those links that I send you or not all the time, but, most of the times they're like, they should not have fired him for this. He's just the scapegoat for what happened, and I completely agree with that. And of course, you've talked to me about what happened that night, and you even said that to make things worse, you had to ride home with Miz and Morrison, and Miz having to apologize to you the entire time that y'all were going to the next city, and things. So, yeah, they should not be blaming you for something like that. And even when we look up, if you can look it up, you actually try to pan down the runtime by coaching them as to what all to do next. So, it wasn't always that you were actually communicating with them as to what was going on backstage to actually make the event more entertaining. So it's not really that big of a, it shouldn't have been that big of a deal. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it was, it wasn't that big of a deal. The story still got told, that the friction between Matt Hardy and Mark Henry which is what the match was supposed to be about anyway. Mark still, turned on Matt and gave him the splash in the World's Strongest Slam and set up the angle, furthered the angle for SummerSlam. And just to clarify, none of those four guys blamed me. I talked with all those guys after the match. They understood that stuff happens. They weren't mad at me. They weren't pointing fingers at me. And, and I wasn't at them. It was just, he said that, there was a combination of things that led to that moment. One being that Morrison got knocked out, taking the side effect from the second rope. Had I realized at the time that he was kind of knocked a little loopy, I would have thrown up the X and stopped the match. And just cut it right there. Had I realized at the time. But he's such a pro that even though he got knocked loopy, he still stayed in the moment. And which kind of that kind of kept me going. Miz forgot his spot. He forgot to run in and break up the pin. But at the same time, I'm not mad at him for that. I can't fault him for that because at that point in time, Miz and Morrison, they were really just starting to get over in WWE. They were using them on SmackDown and ECW. They were taping promos. They were taping the dirt sheet for WWE.com. Those two guys, they were literally working from the time they got to the building till the end of the show at night. he forgot a spot. You know, with all the things those guys going on, he forgot it. Yeah, it was a big spot, especially when it pertains to what happened to me, but it happens. It's wrestling, and that's part of the reason why one of the arts of wrestling is lost, is like the improv. You know, the ability to just move, you know, just to do something else, go to a plan B or a plan C. But you know, I'm happy all those guys achieved the success they did. You know, more power to them. Glad they made their money and doing well. And I, you know, have no ill thoughts or will towards any of those guys at all.
I wouldn't expect you to.
Talking about Buff Bagwell, you mentioned he started WCW. Well, he was in the organization on TV before that.
Yep.
Global Wrestling.
Yep, the Global Wrestling Federation.
He was the handsome stranger back then because he was under a mask.
Yep.
And then he had Booker T and C. Ray started there. X-Pac started there. A lot of people, New Generation started because Gary Hart, once they folded, when they closed World Tour, he got into those organizations. Gary had a connection to both.
Yep.
See, for years he's been bringing wrestlers to both organizations since world class because he's, like, for example, when Dusty Rhodes came to the American Dream, seeing the old tape, he's the one, him and Graham were the ones that came up with that gimmick for Dusty Rhodes. He became a good guy in Florida. He came up with the gimmick. He made Dusty Rhodes what he was. He's been doing a lot, like Rick Rude, he made Big Star, Ultimate Warrior, and all them. We think about him being underrated. He's like the most underrated person in wrestling. No, Gary Hart.
Gary Hart.
Who brought Buff to WCW.
Oh, yeah, Gary Hart. I don't know if you ever read his book. If you ever read Gary Hart's book.
I'm trying to find it.
If you want to read a digital copy, you can go to archives.org, and there's a digital copy available.
Okay, I know. I got archives. Yeah.
He was such a smart guy, an intelligent guy as far as a booker and a talent. You know, he definitely was somebody that was underrated as far as being a manager. You know, he had that good run, his big mainstream run in WCW with Terry Funk in '89 was a big thing for him. Now, I heard at one point he was originally considered to be the manager for Umaga before they settled on Armando Estrada. I would have loved to see Gary. I would love to see him back on TV.
He's good. He's the one that brought the Freebirds to the Von Erichs when he brought Michael Hayes to come to wrestle for WCW and saw what was going on. He brought the Freebirds to help start a feud with the Von Erichs.
Yeah.
He's instrumental in doing that. People don't know that. He was the booker at the time. He booked him, and it became one of the biggest feuds in history in Texas. I remember seeing him on ESPN when they showed him like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They showed the old shows.
Yeah.
That's how I knew about World Class and Global from watching them. When A left, folded in, they had a place to spot. So I know about those ones, watching on there. What, Jeremy?
So, what? So, how many wrestlers that you've worked with in WWE have made significant improvements from the time that you were working with them to what they're doing now? So, like Kofi Kingston, Cody Rhodes, and all those guys.
Well, really, you know, that was two of the top ones right there. I was there when Cody first started. He came in and tag team with Bob Holly, so he's obviously came a long way. Same with Kofi, from the Jamaican gimmick to where he's at now. Ziggler, from going from, you know, male cheerleader to one of the top working names in the business. You know, Sheamus came in from Ireland, working independence for a few years. Same with Drew McIntyre. Drew coming in with Wade and Sheamus and going through what he went through with 3MB in the release and reinventing himself to get
for that. He originally was with Shane McMahon early on when he was still using that much. Early on in 2012, 2013, so he got fired after a few months because they didn't know what to do with him. Then he came back years later, and then he was with Sheamus and then. He was in WWE around 2011, I think 2013. He was clean shaven, was like a bodyguard for Shaven Man, and he was doing good, but then they started falling apart, and they had to fire him.
Who are you talking about?
Drew McIntyre. He was in WWE with Shane McMahon early on between 2011.
He started out as the chosen one.
Right. He was in different name at the time. He came from NXT and was with Shane McMahon for a while, but he didn't work out, so they fired him. And then they brought him back years later after he polished his ring presence. Learned a little more. Then they brought him back. That's how I remember when I first saw Drew back early days. He was on a different gimmick at the time. You have to look at the videotape and YouTube to find the videos because they're on there. He's clean shaved, you don't even recognize him. He was under his Drew McIntyre, but he was definitely different for the way his career is now. He came a long way from that. I saw some of that on YouTube. I was looking at a couple years ago, looking at Bob, and I saw the old tapes and from, oh my God, he was in there before. So he came from that. Then he came back to do the stuff I'm talking about. So sorry to interrupt you, Buff. Go ahead.
I was done.
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sometimes I'll do that. Wow.
Yeah. So, what injuries have you experienced or had while wrestling or in your wrestling career?
Had to have hernia surgery. Had surgery on my hip area, shoulder. So, a few bumps and bruises. Got a bum knee that probably needs looked at, but I just haven't gotten it looked at. But yeah, had a few.
Here's the picture 18 years ago when he made his debut. That was what he was in early 2010s when he first came in. That's Drew McIntyre. Do you believe that's what I'm talking about, my first song? He was green at the time. He's an Intercontinental Champion, but didn't last very long. So, that was a gimmick he had a long time ago. It wasn't much, but
okay.
People don't remember that.
So
I do a lot of my
let's talk about your hobbies outside of wrestling. Okay. So what do you do outside of wrestling now?
We do our sports card and toy business. Play, try to spend as much time with our son as possible, taking him to the aquarium, zoos, just out and about, just enjoying life and being together as a little family. We just like doing fun stuff and experiencing as much as we can.
At what age do you think that Ollie should be introduced to wrestling and your wrestling career?
I don't know, really. It's hard to say. There's not a set age. It just depends on him, if he even has any interest in it. We're not the type of parents, we're not going to force him to do anything or watch anything. It's just going to be, if he enjoys it, he does, and then we'll teach him. If he doesn't, that's fine too. There's just so much out there for anybody nowadays. Baseball, football, basketball, not even sports related. Somebody might want to be an artist or an actor or singer. There's just so many different things. For kids to get into nowadays, and we just as parents, and I'm sure you feel the same way. You just want your kid to find something in their life that they enjoy as much as we enjoy wrestling.
Exactly. What do you do for work now?
Right now, I'm a floating manager for some U-Haul dealerships and storage centers. So I work a couple days in Biloxi, Mississippi, a couple days in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and a couple days in Gulfport, Mississippi. So I go float amongst different stores. So right now I'm in the storage industry, and then again we have our furniture moving business, residential furniture moving business on the side, and then we have our sports cards business and toy business, and then we have our event with Buff coming up, and hopefully, if that's a success, we'll be doing that on a more regular basis. So we have our fingers in a lot of pies.
I bet. How did you get in touch with Buff for this event?
I got in touch with him through Dustin Starr in Memphis. I still every once in a while go up and referee with him. He's grown Memphis wrestling so big ever since he started running that several years back. I called him up on the phone, told him what we were thinking about doing, and picked his brain about who we could bring in. We discussed some names, and then we settled on Buff. He reached out to Buff and said, "Hey, this is my ex tag team partner. He's got an idea. Are you interested in talking with him?" And Buff said, "Yeah, give him my number." So I called him on the phone about 3.5, 4 months ago, whenever we first started booking all this, and we talked on the phone, and he's just been the nicest guy to deal with, and he's just been so open to calls and texts and messages, and as you've seen, sending videos and pictures. So we anticipate doing future events with Buff, hopefully on the coast around Hattiesburg, Jackson. We're willing to take the show on the road, so hopefully this will be the first of many, not just with him, but with other people too. We've been talking to some other folks whose names are going to keep a secret for a little while, but we're hoping this will be a whole new ball game for us.
Okay, mention Buff. What do you think about his Dark Side of the Ring episode? I think it's a good series. I mean, actually talking to the wrestlers, the people, and Buff did his own thing himself. He told his own story. What do you think about him saying about his own story? I thought it was a good episode, in my opinion.
It totally was. It's it just makes you appreciate more what people have been through. Dark Side of the Ring, even though a lot of it is dark, but you don't know what some of these people have dealt with. We know what we see on TV, right, but we don't know what they're dealing with behind the scenes or at home or on the road, whether it's dealing with injuries or addiction or whatever the case is. But the awesome thing about him is Buff is willing to come talk to people like us in Pike County, Mississippi, and explain how he got from where he was to where he is now. With the help of God, and turning his life over to Christ, and what that's done for him. So that's we've told a lot of people, and I'll say this too. The event with Buff is not just for wrestling fans. It's for people who are genuinely inspired by just a great story. Whether or not you're a wrestling fan or not, just hearing how he's overcome some of the obstacles he's had to overcome in his life.
Yes.
The car accident, two car accidents.
Yep.
That nearly cost him his life. The injury to his neck with Rick Steiner. The man's been through a lot,
yes,
and he's still here. He's still strong in his faith. He's still traveling and sharing, his message, and that it's just a real inspirational story. And hopefully, there'll be a lot of people there to hear it.
Definitely hope so.
Go ahead.
So I know from experience and you personally that you're a big, and I mean big, baseball fan. What other sports other than wrestling do you like to watch?
Well, obviously baseball is the biggest. Basketball is okay, not my number one, but we'll go watch a Pelicans game once every couple of years. Football, I like football. We watch football sometimes during the playoff season and Super Bowl season, or we'll go to a college game every once in a while. But baseball and wrestling are number, 1 and 2 there. Everything else just kind of falls in. We'll go. Every once in a while we'll get an oddball ticket to something like, we went and saw the Pro Bull Riding Tour in New Orleans a couple years ago, or something like that. But yeah, it's mostly baseball or wrestling.
And I'll talk about one more wrestler that's in the city he's working in now, Muhammad Hassan. What they did to him with that little incident that they decided to show on the air. But a lot of people don't know now he's now working. I'm in Fulton, New York. That's where I'm from. He's working in our school system right now. He's now up administration. What do you think about wrestlers once they leave and decide to go regular jobs? What do you think about that? I'm doing that instead of wrestling.
Man, you gotta take your hat off to them, because I'll tell you firsthand, man, that is an ego check. That is a real hard ego check, and that will, I use myself. I tell people all the time. I went from, refereeing at WrestleMania and making 6 figures a year to getting my release and having to go manage a Subway for $8 an hour in the space of 6 months. Imagine what that does to somebody's head. So for somebody to go back into the workforce and pay their, you got to do what you got to do to pay your bills.
Yes.
If you can pay them, doing independent wrestling, all the power, all the more power to you. Unfortunately for me, the independent market was not great for an ex-referee. Most independent companies don't want to pay referees, which is fine. But I still have bills to pay. I got to keep moving forward. I'm going to do what I have to do. But that's a hard come down. To go from wrestling in front of 50, 60,000 people, pay-per-views, royalties, big paydays, and then you get released and it's all over. Yeah. That can really mess with your mind. And if you're not in the mental mind state, it can be easy to fall down the rabbit hole of booze or pills or whatever your demons are. Thank God every day that wasn't my thing. My thing is, hey, I got to move forward. So if I got to sling sandwiches at Subway for a little while or sell mattresses, until I get myself back to where I need to be, that's what I'm gonna have to do. And for Muhammad Hassan, a immensely talented wrestler who got put in a bad situation, not anything that was his fault. That was something that creative probably should not have done, not have aired on TV, and he was a scapegoat for it. Got released when they could have easily repackaged him or done something different. But for him to go back to school, get his degree, start teaching, and just move forward with his life, all the respect for him for that.
He already has a degree. He was already a teacher before he became a wrestler. He was a social studies teacher before he became a wrestler. He already has a degree. He's went back after he left wrestling. So might as well go back to my job at Comfort. And then he started back social studies teacher and worked his way up. I
didn't know that. I never met him.
I'm not either, but he had this degree before he became a wrestler. He wasn't interested in wrestling at the time. He got his college degree first. There's a lot of these wrestlers these days want to go to college first and then wrestle in case something happens. That's what a lot of people do. A lot of people don't know that. They have to find out, try to get someone else behind if something happens. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. So... So you've briefly mentioned about this, and we've also discussed this in the past. Every wrestling fan hates this question. Every wrestler probably hears it all the time.
The big question, he calls it.
The forbidden question. You already know what it is.
Everybody's talking about
it. So it's, why do you love wrestling, and why should we care that it's fake kayfabe?
Wait, your phone cut out.
He said, your phone called out, Jimmy.
Okay.
Say it again.
So, why do you love wrestling, and why should we care, or don't you know? Why should we care that it is fake or kayfabe?
There we go. He heard.
Oh, why do I love wrestling? Oh, okay. The first part. Why do I love it? I can't put it into words. I just do. I just enjoy it. I enjoy every aspect of it, from watching it. The athleticism, the production, the characters, the promos, to the business side of it. I've always wanted to learn everything, which is another reason why, I didn't turn my nose up at the referee job when it was offered. I want to know how to do everything. I wanted to know how to wrestle, referee. I wanted to know how to promote, book, produce. I wanted to know the whole business inside out. And if I can contribute to it in any way possible, I want to be able to contribute however somebody would want me to contribute. I don't know why I love it. I just do. It's like one of those things that gets in your blood. And the longer you go, the harder it is to explain why you love it. It's just, it's pro wrestling. It's just, it's just awesome. Now, as far as the other side of the question, that's going to be a never-ending battle. Back in 1985, if we were working for Bill Watts and you asked that question, I'd have to get my car and drive over to Summit, Mississippi, and throw you out the window. But things are so different now. Why should we care? We shouldn't care. Who cares? I mean, I like to say, I don't want to be a smart aleck to anybody, but sometimes when people would say stuff like that, I'd be like, "Oh, what's your favorite movie?" Ghostbusters. All right, do you really believe that 4 guys chased a 9,000-pound marshmallow man across New York City with lasers? Do you think that really happened? Well, no. Did you enjoy the movie any less?
No.
Well, no. Okay. So why, don't bury something that somebody else enjoys, just like I brought up, the NASCAR earlier. I've got a million things I'd rather do than watch a car driving around in a circle for 4 hours. But I respect the fact that they're racing, they're putting their lives on the line, and millions and millions of people enjoy watching it. And it draws tons of money. So I respect NASCAR, even though it's not my cup of tea. I'm never going to tell somebody, yeah, you shouldn't watch that. The races are not real. Those aren't real cars. That's not real tires. That's ketchup in those tires. You hear all this. You hear all the, people want to give you, a million reasons why you shouldn't watch wrestling. I don't ever want to, I would never want to crap on somebody's dreams like that, and talk bad about something they may like, and that's, one of my go-tos. Wrestling, it is what it is. If you enjoy it, great. Watch it, love it. Watch what you like. Don't watch what you don't like. Listen to what you want to listen to, and then, if you don't like it, hey, just move on. Find something you do like. Life's too short to just nitpick at stuff you don't like. Find something that you like, and have a passion for, and enjoy it.
Yeah, I got one more question for me. These days, people talk about people who are in it for the money and for the wrestling. Like, I'm going to give you a couple examples. First up, Brody Lee. He did a little backyard wrestling, not the extreme stuff, but just the basic moves, basic like that, because he's wrestling in school and stuff. And then when he got to do an Indian event, they liked his style, and he became a big star. That was just for that. So I'm talking about the hardcore crap. That was just regular basic wrestling that they're trained on. He was in it because he loved it. Parents of Mass Transit. You've ever seen the video on YouTube with Devon Dudley? Mass Transit's kid thought he was a big wrestler. He's underage. They didn't know about it. He comes in, screws everything up, gets cut open. The big giant controversy. He's only in it for the money. What do you think about people who are coming in wrestling for the money versus people coming in for the love of the sport?
It's it's a toss up. I mean, you gotta have the perfect combination. You got to love making money, but you got to love business too. But at the same time, you can't fault somebody that gets into the business for the money, especially if the promoter's offering them money. If a promotion is offering somebody, like, look, I won't say hate, too strong word. I don't like country music. Not a fan. I don't like it at all. I just don't. It's just not my thing. I'm not going to knock it, or I'm not going to not make fun of anybody who does like it, but I'm not a fan of it. Mm-hmm. But if somebody came to me and offered me a $10 million contract to put on a pair of overalls and a cowboy hat and hold a guitar in my hand and sing Willie Nelson cover songs, I'm probably going to do it, no matter how I feel about country music. Mm-hmm. Same thing with wrestling. If you are given an opportunity, because, life's short enough as it is. You only get one opportunity to if you're lucky, make good money doing anything. Mm-hmm. And one thing, I think, a lot of people get into wrestling for the money, but then they start to see how enjoyable it is and how fun it is, and eventually they do love it. They start to enjoy it. Wrestling's one of those things that even if you don't quite understand what you're getting into, once you get into it and you hear the pop of the crowd.
Do you have any other questions, Mike, for Wes?
Nope. Oh, you answered all of mine. Any more?
Do you have anything that you would like to say right now, Wes?
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate you letting me, talk a little bit and share some insight. If anybody out there's listening, if you're within driving distance from Summit, Mississippi, Pike County, hit us up on Facebook, KWO Productions. If you get your tickets for the Buff Bagwell show, call us or send us a private message. Say you heard us on Broken Turnbuckle, and we'll get you a free 8x10 of Buff to go along with your ticket purchase. So nice. Shoot us a message or give us a call, and we'll get you hooked up. But tell us you heard us on the Broken Turnbuckle.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. I believe I can't think of very many other questions wrestling related right now. So, other than that, this has been the J08, also known as Jimmy J. Guillory. That's been Classic Mike and Wes Adams, former WWE referee and former wrestler. So, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
All right.
Have a good day.